Okay, good morning. We are continuing Sadi Zain in Hilchos Basar Bechalav. We are continuing with Seif Bet. Okay, so we're discussing um, dairy bread. Just a continuation from where we started. That okay, it's from all the achronim that I can see who discussed the topic. It seems clear that the dairy bread issue, or even if it would be made with the dough, would be made with meat gravy, then it applies to pas haba bekisman. I haven't seen anyone who says otherwise, and they're all trying to explain why certain pastries are okay, which obviously shows that they felt it's not okay, without a reason to say it's mutter. Okay. Um, so normally, the truth is though, lamaisa, normally pastries are not going to be a problem. Why? Uh, because number one, they have a distinct shape, we discussed, or sometimes you'll see some cheese or something about it on it that shows that it's dairy or whatever it is. Also, many of the poskim point out, Aruch Shulchan, and I think all the poskim who discuss it point out that as long as it's a pastry, a bread that is not eaten with meat, then it's not a problem. Because the whole issue is that you might come to eat it with um, dairy bread. I mean, again, it could be vice versa, but dairy bread that you might come to eat it with a piece of meat. We're not worried about you might eat it within 6 hours. That far we're not going. But we don't want you to eat it together with a piece of meat. And so if it's a pastry that's not normally eaten in a meal with bread, then you do not have to worry about it. So that's okay. So that pretty much does take care of most pastries, except for stuff like crackers or certain things like that you might have with meat. Again, I guess it depends what the item is and where what kind of community where you live and what's normal.
You're not so concerned about dessert or after 6
We're not worried
hours.
about dessert. We said right. Or 6 hours later. We're just talking about. We're worried about eating it at the same time. We already said that. Okay. Fine. Okay, the Aruch HaShulchan has an interesting case where he points out it could happen where a bakery or a city starts out making a new pastry that might be eaten with meat, and really what they started doing is aser, and it could be that it was aser, but now that it's been going on for a number of months or years, and everyone knows that this has become that this item is dairy, so then it's mutter to continue doing it. Because once something is known to be dairy or very possibly dairy, so then you're not worried about it anymore. So that's just, sometimes minhagim start like that. They start be'isr and then things come, when you push the envelope with, whatever the minhag is. Okay, let's see. There is what I believe is just a das yachid. I don't think it's the majority, but I haven't seen most people discuss the prat. Let's say you plan. We already learned that once a baked good, a regular piece of bread is made, and then you're going to, and then you want to put afterwards. See, that was done be'isr, and then afterwards you want to put a sign on it that says dairy. So we learned the Maharit, Pesach Tshuva, we already learned it's Aser. It already becomes Aser and you can't undo it anymore. So there's an opinion that's brought down in the Psakim Mechuvas from the Shevet Kahati that writes that when you bake it, if you have in mind you're going to put the label on afterwards, that's good enough. I'm just throwing it out there, but I think it's probably a Das Yachid and not so accepted.
The white bread.
Okay. Now, so that's why also by English muffins sometimes, or any muffins, they're not normally eaten with meat. So that could be one reason. Another reason is sometimes a certain kashrus organization could put their stamp of approval on it because they know that perhaps it's actually just a marketing gimmick, and it's not that there isn't even any dairy in there, and they would know this, we wouldn't, and therefore they might say it's dairy also, but this way they can call it kosher, or sometimes it's really batel b'shishim. Again, so therefore, I mean, that would be just part of the
Allergy.
or allergy issues. Okay, so their point is it's not milchik. That's why it's mutter. That's why it's kosher. Because even though it says dairy on it, there are some things in the world. I mean, it's a lot of things that are say dairy and they're really not halachically.
But even if it was dairy.
Then if it was dairy, so then that's the question. It might be an isser to eat it, or unless it's a product that people know is dairy. That's everything we've been doing. Or has different shape. In other words, that's one of the reasons that we know it's okay. That's exactly. Okay. So let's go on from there. And of course, if it was done, it's not asr behana. You can get benefit from it. Okay. You can sell it to someone as long as you're not worried that they're going to now sell it again to another Jew, like other things. Okay, let's continue. Inside, bet. Tanur shishtacho Elia. Ein ofin bo pat, ad shesekenu bifnim, ad shitlaben vafilu imhu shel buchya. Okay, let's start translating. So if you have an oven, this case we had before, and basically you're lining the oven with meat fat. So it's not just zeya, you're actually putting the fat touching to the walls of the oven. And so that's why it became a problem. Right? You don't bake it together with it. Let's see. Now,
Why do they do that?
and the only way to kosher it, they wanted to seal it for whatever reason.
They're sealing it.
So now, that was the situation. Now, in order to kosher it though, you can't just kosher it from the outside, you have to kosher it from the inside because you're cooking from the inside and that fat touched some of the inside as well. So that's why it's, so Shulchan, he points out, if it's a cheres oven, you can't kosher it from the outside. But if it's a metal oven, it doesn't apply to our ovens. We have many layers, but if you had one single wall of a piece of metal, he holds, if you're going to do libun on the outside, it'll go through to the inside. But that doesn't really help us. Okay. Even if it's, no, here, Perush, Kli Cheresh Masikin Tachta Ve'ofin Alav Ugot. So this is a case where it's made of cheres, and the heat is from the outside. But still, it's not enough. If you're going to be cooking inside and any of the meat gets on the inside when you sealed it, so then you have to just make sure, since you're cooking on the inside, you have to kosher it from the inside. Ein lo heter al yedei hesek mibachutz. Outside doesn't help. Okay, and that's it. And he writes, at many points we already discussed, kosher in an oven is you have to clean it obviously and then burn everything out from the inside. And okay, fine. Gimel. Okay, so let's see Gimel. Now Gimel, we discussed ovens mainly in regards to zeya, not cooking them at the same time if you're going to have vapor and steam come out and they're being cooked at the same time. Gimel is primarily discussing an issue of reyach, of the aroma transfer from one to another, and that could be even an issue even if the items are dry or roasting or bread, and it's not an issue. So I don't want to repeat everything we said before, but let's read this. In particular, we're looking at the issue of dry and aroma. Pat shafa'a im hatzli. If you're baking bread with a roasted piece of chicken in the same oven at the same time, V'dagim shitzalo b'tanur echad im habasa, or you're cooking fish, you're roasting fish with meat at the same time. Again, not together, but but in the same oven. It means not in the same pot, but yes, in the same oven at the same time. Asr la'ochlam b'chalav. So now they do get this reyach of basar, and what was part of bread or part of fish now becomes b'sari. So you can't eat it together at the same time with milk. Yeah, it's open. Yeah, let's keep reading. Now we're talking about a small oven, which aval, tanur, gadol, hamachzik shnei masar esronim. So we have this heter here clearly by Reah. Okay, when it comes to aroma, if it's bigger than 12 esronim, So again, you can let me know what you think your calculations are, but I think it's just under 20 liters, according to Rav Chaim Nar. Of course, it'd be much more according to the Chazon Ish. And most of our ovens are this size. Okay, I'm not talking about a small toaster oven, but any normal oven in Israel or America, I'm assuming England, I haven't been there to see their ovens, but I'm sure they're all at least 20 liters. Okay? Yeah, it's close a little bit. It's like smaller than Israel? It's probably the same. Okay, I don't know. Okay, the Hani Mili B'Tanar Katan is when it's a problem. About B'Tanar Gadol, this issue doesn't apply to us, of Reach, if it's dry. Again, normally we recommend not cooking and baking meat and milk and part of things at the same time in the same oven if it's open, but as far as Reach, it's not such an issue. Upiv Patuach Mutter, and there has to be an open vent or something for it to escape, which our ovens usually do have. V'im hatzli mechuse, but if it's covered up, it's not going to be a problem. And then the next case, v'chein, even if it be a small oven, but it's all covered up. Again, we're not talking about the issue of zeya, where there's vapor, and that's another. If it's very moist, could be you need a bigger area. We discussed that. V'chein, pashtida shemachusa hanekev shabo. Now, let's say you have part of bread or part of fish, and you're cooking it with some kind of a bareka with meat inside, or whatever it is, some kind of a pastry. And so there's a hole where you insert the meat. So if that hole is open, then the reach of the meat comes out. But if it's a complete ball and sealed all the way around with dough, then that's called mechusa, and it's not an issue of reach. V'chen pashtida shemachusa hanekev shabo mutter afilu betanur tsar. Right? If it's covered, then it's going to be even in a small oven, not a problem.
Provided there's nothing
But we will,
out or anything like that.
and then we'll keep reading more on this when we get later. The Rama says in Kuf Chet.
I think the thing with Gimel is that there's no isser to do this. The only isser is to eat it with milk, as opposed to cooking a bread that actually contains meat or milk is mamshas. This is the only thing we have.
We're
to do is
discussing
you don't
of
eat it with
Reya.
milk. But you can do it. He's not saying you can't do it. You can have bread in the oven together with meat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, just the tshuva brings it pre-begun. Our ovens are probably not big enough.
I don't know. He didn't live in our days, so I don't know.
Because you measure, it's only the floor, tefach high of making it.
So show me. We'll discuss after. Show me after. Okay, we'll start with Hilchos Tarovis. It'll be a little short to finish. So we're going to start with Hilchos Tarovis. We'll do one or two sefer. Siman Sadichet. Okay. Din Iser Shenit Arev Veheter Ve'ofan Bitulo. Okay. Okay, Aleph. Iser Shenit Arev Beheter. Now, if treif mixes with kosher food, min b'she'eno mino kegon chelev shenit arev b'basar. So if you have two separate types of foods, and such as fat mixing with basar, so then and they have a little bit of a different flavor. She'itame'enu goy. Shach says chelev, but I tend to agree that it can go either way at this point, but okay. Yeah. Generally in basar b'chalav it's milk. Generally in tarovis it's not, but it's chelev, but it depends. Okay, let's go on. Itamenu goy. So goy tasted. Im omer she'ein bo. I give it to him to taste. Im omer she'ein bo ta'am chelev. O she'omer she'yesh bo ta'am ela shehu pagum mutter. He says, I don't taste any fat in here. It tastes like a regular piece of meat. Then it's fine. or the or I do, but it actually makes it taste worse. So then either case, it's mutter to eat. V'hu shelo yeh sofa l'ashpiach. That's assuming that it's not going to get better with time. Sometimes certain foods, you start to cook them or flavors, it makes it, first it gets worse and then it gets better. So then it's still a problem. It has to be where it won't get better. V'tzarich shelo yeda shesomchin alav. Now, if it's a regular goy, it has to be that he doesn't know that you're relying on him. Right? It has to be like you around about, just ask him and he tells you the fitumo. But if it's a expert chef and his reputation is on the line, so then you can trust him. Here, I'll just read. In the middle of the shach, 1 second. So that's in the beginning of bet. That's where we discussed that. Right, that's that part. And then in the middle, he'll say later on, the ein goy mesiach l'pitumo ne'aman be'eser tara, ela be'edut isha bilvad. I don't know. Let's, but we do rely by a failure, by an expert. Anyways, okay, let's go on. Where do we leave off? It's already shalei dash shesom kanala. Ve'im ein sham goy letoamo. What if you don't have a goy to ask? Right, the Shulchan Aruch says, "Lechatchila, go ahead, ask the goy." Misharim b'shishim. Then you go after shishim. Okay. V'im ein sham goy. Sorry. V'chein im hu min b'mino kevan deleka lemekam atama misharim b'shishim. And anytime you go by min b'mino, then it goes by shishim because there's no way to taste it, and that's what we hold. Sorry, that's the Shulchan Aruch. However, the Ramah, and this is the halacha for Ashkenazim, Sfardim, ve'einu hagim akshav lismach agoy. We do not rely on agoy, and always u'misharim hakol b'shishim. We always go by shishim. Okay. I just point out as a reminder, we did say before that allowing a Jew to taste, so if it's min b'she'eno mino dehetera, so then we allow it. B'diavad, in the case of b'diavad.
What's the shallow?
If you rely ever on taste, or you always go by shishim. So there is, so we mentioned that before. There is sometimes, b'diavad, we do allow. Okay. Let's fine. Let's start bet. Imit arev min b'mino. Now, if you mix min b'mino, so we learned. The halacha follows. It's the opinion of Rabbeinu Tam that when it's min b'mino, daraisa we go after rov, midarabanan we go after shishim, and b'she'eno mino, so we go after ta'am ke'ikar, and that's the araisa. So that's Rabbeinu Tam. Correctly, I believe Rashi holds by min b'mino you need. It kind of holds. It's afilu be'elef, but it's me. You know what? I'm not sure exactly, but Rashi's more strict with min b'mino, and she'eno mino he holds. I should have written it down. I think batal barov. It's a little bit of the opposite. But anyways, this is the psak over here. Ve'im nitarev min b'mino v'nishpach ve'inyan she'en yecholim lamod alav l'sha'aro. So you're not sure anymore. Like it fell on the floor. There's nothing to measure. You can't figure it out. So im noda shahaya rubo heter mutter. So if you know for sure that there is at least rov, if we're talking about a case of min b'mino, so midaraisa it goes by rov, and because we normally would say safek daraisa chuma, safek darabanan lakula. You just don't know if it was batel b'shishim, so then it's mutter. V'im lo noda shahaya rubo heter. But what if you don't know if the majority was heter? So then, you don't know, maybe it's 50-50, maybe it's 40-60, and you don't even have rov. So since you don't know for sure if it's rov, then for sure you have to say it's aser. Okay. Haga, u'le'inyan min b'mino, azlinan batar shma. Shema. So according to the Ramah, he holds, how do you define min b'mino? You go after the name, what the item is. It doesn't go by taste, it goes by name. Im hayashave have min b'mino. If the two foods have the same name, you both call them the same thing, even if they taste differently, then that's called min b'mino. Lo azlinon batar tam, you don't go after taste. Im hushave olo, whether it's the same or not, that doesn't have the bearing. Now, the Shach and almost all of the poskim disagree with the Ramah, and they say the halacha that it goes by taste. Taste defines if something is min b'mino. I'll just quote from Psakim with Shuvos. He has some examples. He actually says, we're not going to get too much into it, but basar behema and basar oaf, or lamb, chicken and cow meat. So he says that's actually a machloket, if that has the same, that has considered the same flavor or not. But so we'll just leave that as a machloket. But no, well, according to, it's done. Okay, I'll just finish here. So according to according to the Ramah, it goes by name. But he holds, all the poskim hold, it goes by flavor. And so it's a machloket if that flavor is different enough. I don't know. That's what so it's whatever, it's a machloket, what can I do? So, anyways, blood and meat, that's going to be she'eno mino. Because, fish, different type, kosher fish and non-kosher fish, he also says that's a machloket. I don't know. But let's see. Let me just finish reading this. Aval, imit arav she'eno mino. Now, what happens if it mixes mean with its one mean with not its own mean, the nishbach, and then it spills on the floor? So now you can't measure it. She'en yochol lamad alav v'sha'aro afilu noda shahayarubo heter asa. Now you know that it's for sure majority kosher, but you just don't know if it was batel b'shishim or not. So here you have to say the whole thing is aser because you don't know, and shishim is deraisa. So therefore, speika l'chum. Okay. Do you want to just finish this or stop? Let me just finish it. You know what? I'm going to stop here. I'll tell you why, because it's a confusing case. No, whatever.